All right,
Yeah.
so we are recording again. My name is Luke Angstadt. This is the Business of Esoteric Knowledge and Wisdom channel. I am the author of a book titled The Musings of De La Pew. It's a 20-year study and investigation into the nature of existence, the nature of the universe, reality, God, human beings, and the relation between all of them. You can find links to Amazon in the description page in the description of this video. Presently with this video, our channel is just on YouTube, but I'm also in the process of moving it over to other alternative video sharing platforms, one in particular, Rumble. I have my co-host here, Peter, in Serbia. I want him to introduce himself too, and after that, we'll discuss. This is kind of this video is going to be a continuation of the conversation we had with our previous guest, Nico Rocco, who had just amazing information to share with us earlier today. And Peter and I were going to continue the conversation that Nico started with me earlier today. And it also goes without, it's understood, but I shared with Nico too and made it abundantly clear that anytime he wants to join the conversation again, he has an open invitation. And Peter and I both,
Sure.
we eagerly await to have him join the conversation again. So without any further ado, Peter, you want to introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll kind of make a brief synopsis of what Nico shared with us earlier, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, definitely. My current name is Peter Rozovic. I'm the co-host of the Business of Esoteric Knowledge and Wisdom. And I also am the author of the books that are present and available on Amazon.com. Their names are Tesla, Third Reich, and the Extraterrestrials, the Culture, and the Mythologies of Techno World. So that's the brief introduction of what we do.
All right, great. So I'll just kind of briefly summarize what Nico shared with us earlier, and that is that when Nico was talking about what is the objective, what is the motive of the Freemasons, the secret societies, the Illuminati, the people in the Vatican, guys like Bill Gates, George Soros, Henry Kissinger. I'm kind of throwing names out there, but it's kind of agreed among people that are trying to study just what the hell's going on this planet, is that there is this thing that in particular the secret societies, the Freemasons, and the Illuminati, they call the great work. I mean, what is the great work of history? How does this tie into the lockdowns of 2020, COVID-19? I mean, everything, and we're talking about there's talk of another impending lockdown. So not just over the past 2.5 years, what's going on with this great work, but there is this what the Freemasons call the great work of history. And I know Peter's familiar with this phrase, the great work too. Right, Peter? I mean, I'm not right. Is that true? You're well aware of this idea of the great work of history and what they're trying to achieve.
Sure, definitely.
And what Nico said is that he has recently come upon the information that the great work of history is what they are trying to achieve is that they are trying to achieve a synthesis of the opposites, of the duality of the nature of the physical world, where we have the light and dark, good and evil, good and bad, hot and cold, short and far. I mean, something that is delicious to eat, something that is disgusting, something that is beautiful, something that is ugly. I mean, in this temporal physical plane of existence, we're always making comparisons between opposites, or one of the basic first principles of the physical world is that we as sentient beings are able to make distinctions, and by making distinctions between good and bad, and just the nature of just that everything in the universe has its opposite, that by virtue of us having the ability to draw distinctions on the physical plane of existence between again good and evil, light and dark, and everything that has its opposing opposite in the universe, the ability to draw distinctions is part of what it might be even the crux of what keeps us imprisoned in this physical plane of existence. Or so goes the understanding of the Freemasons and the Illuminati and various other secret societies and the names that they are known by, and that it is their objective to eliminate the duality that we find in our world, and that if they can cause a synthesis of opposites in the universe, but by virtue of this synthesis and by removing the duality that we see in the physical world, that this will set in motion the ascendancy that will lift the human, that will liberate the human race from this physical prison that we presently live in, and that it will take us to the fourth dimension and beyond, to the astral plane, the etheric plane, and it will bring us back to the source, the vibrationless source from which everything that we can experience, from which this vibrationless source from which everything that vibrates comes from. And he got into the nature of the demiurge, the idea that the demiurge has confused itself with God, the capital God, the ultimate God, how the demiurge has confused himself with that. And without me trying to summarize his words too much, I'd rather just reference Peter and the rest of our audience to the conversation that Nico had with us earlier today, because he said it much better than I'm saying it right here. But that's kind of the gist of it, that we are going to have a synthesis of opposites, or that's what the great work of the Freemasons is, and this will lead to the ascension of the human race out of this physical prison that we exist in.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, this is a great subject to discuss and talk about.
And I see it has corollaries with AI and with maybe post-humanism and where we are headed as a species, and how we're moving out of the old age of Kali, and we're moving into we're going to be moving into an enlightened age. So it has a lot of a lot of tangents and corollaries to what we've been discussing, Peter, and that's why, for one of many reasons, why I said, Nico, please, I want Nico on to come on at his convenience again whenever he so chooses.
Sure, definitely. I want him to, and I would like to meet him more profoundly, because there was just a brief overlook since I had a short trip to Hungary. I told it to you, but I'm telling to our followers that I went to the spa center in Hungary, since I'm in Europe now. Mm-hmm. And I stayed there for 5-6 days. Wasn't bringing my laptop with me, so I had to afford a shorter trip in order to rest for a while. So here I am again. And the name of the spa is Morahalom in Hungarian language. So this is a perfect advertising for anyone of our co-patriots in the US or in Europe to go there. I mean, why not? Mm-hmm. I'm not giving the advices, but I do the advertising sometimes. Please. Because that's what I do. That's my duty. Mm-hmm. I do the advertising every day with my business and online on Amazon. So, okay, selling books and items. And it's going very well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the great schism, the great dichotomy is a kind of a schizophrenia that has been viciously and violently, meaning unnatural, imposed by the church. Mm-hmm. Because the duality is inside the one. It's unified duality, although it sounds like an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. But it's not. The nature of the nature and the universe is the nature of duality, and we've got to recall the great topic of Abraxas, the god of the Nazarenes, or the Cathars, or the way they were called before in the earlier centuries that previously passed. Those were the Bogomils, and that they were having an agenda, or more like a belief, that there is the demiurge or demigod, which name as Abraxas. Mm-hmm. So you got the derivative of that word each time when you're outspoken, the word abracadabra, mm-hmm. because it's originally it derives from Abraxas. Mm-hmm. And so this is the perfect. This is the perfect moment to recall that moment. And well, the Christians claim that God is pure love. For Jesuits, it's more like negotiation and a rulership and the way of imposing, and while for the Freemasons, God is the hierarchy and order and craft. They are the engineers. The great tradition that leads back to the day of Hiram Abiff, as well as we know, is continuing today. And so the first symbols of Freemasonry derive and originate from that period of Mesopotamia and the Middle East. Thank you. Thank you. So that's the point. So just I want to clear it out. Hiram Abiff was allegedly and assumably the first construction builder, the constructor of the great Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. So he is often claimed to be the first Freemason, so the founder of the society. But today we have the situation that the momentum of the rulership and imposing and dealing, it's better put to say dealing with daily politics and life, because somebody has to deal with it, right? Somebody has to direct and to be the great conductor. The Philharmonic Orchestra, right? I met a couple of great conductors in the symphonic and operatic music, so I know what kind of, from speaking with them, I know what kind of a deal, what kind of an obligation has to do the conductor's job. So I'm telling this to anybody who are watching us. It's a big deal. It's a tough thing to do, to the rulership and the self-imposing to the rest of the planetary system. So it's not an easy job at all. It's a task to do. So the white spiritual brotherhood has recently imposed itself upon the Freemasons. Those hierarchies go on the mental planes and levels. They go mentally in a more of a subtle level. They don't go on the level of the physical imposal, nor using force. It's for mavericks. It's not for the spiritually aware beings. So I'm speaking also the great information. I consider it great and useful that the great spiritual brotherhood has imposed itself upon the Freemasons. And why is that so? Because the Freemasonry has unwillingly and unfortunately lost its inner core, and even the real genuine spiritual aura that goes around it, because the real meaning was building up a man till the point when he becomes a man. So the basic elementary meaning is to make a side stone to become the milestone. So that is the reason why anytime when a future brother is about to be invited into the society and to be officially introduced and be able to see to receive the light, that is the reason why an already established brother is calling another brother, saying, hello, my dear brother, this is the moment. The moment has come to a stone to be covered, to be brushed, to be polished or remade and improved. So but the politics was entering the more and more on into the very core of the Freemasonic brotherhoods. And there is also a vast number of the the particular lodges, and with often a lot of the inimical feelings governing amongst them. So it sounds like political parties.
Mhm.
And I'm momentarily in Europe, and I know how many political parties you've got over here
Mhm.
in many countries,
Mhm.
including Great Britain and their neighbors, the Dutchman,
Mhm.
and the Scandinavians. You know, they sometimes do have similar situation with great parties. So as soon as the politics has entered the realm of the Freemasonry, it has destroyed or at least corrupted its genuine spirituality. And I am pretty much close to the belief that there is the force that the Freemasons call the great architect of the universe.
Oh, 1 second, Peter. Did you Peter? You just disappeared. Let me pause it for 1 second here. All right, so we were recording again. I think Peter had some technical difficulties there and was briefly disconnected from the chat. But just to kind of pick up where we left off, I mean, you were talking about there's been a spiritual corruption within the Freemasons, and Nico also addressed this as well, where he said that with this synthesis of opposites to help ascend the human race out of this physical prison of existence. I mean, these people are lying. I mean, obviously they're lying, and they don't have the best interest for human beings. Otherwise, what? There's no. The only reason you do something in secrecy with deception and cloak and daggers and with manipulation is because you have a sinister objective. I mean, and this we see it all with all the parts since March of 2020 with the lockdowns and the whole concept of locking down society to save society, and the whole idea of wearing a cloth mask to prevent a viral infection that where it's akin to keeping up a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes. I mean, it's just one thing after another where it's just and we overwhelmed the general populace with lies to the point where they're just inundated with information and conflicting information, and where they just give up because they're just psychologically overwhelmed with so much conflicting information that they just go along with what's happening. So I mean, the fact of the matter is that if this great work that the Freemasons and the Illuminati, if it had any merit, any goodness to it, if it was designed to truly help to liberate the collective human spirit, why the cloak and daggers? Why the secrecy? Why the imposed global psychological suffering for thousands and thousands of years, let alone the past 2 years and counting since the initial lockdown of March in 2020? Why the secrecy unless you have some seriously sinister motives behind you? And I think, I mean, I'm paraphrasing my own words where the conversation with you and I was before you got disconnected, and also Nico. But you brought up the spiritual corruption there within the Freemasons, Peter, and I thought I'd just bring a little amplification to it. And also, I know it's going to tie into our ongoing conversation with Nico once we get him back on the show.
Yeah, sure. The original Freemasonry has its, or does have its own spirituality, which is genuine, and the symbols and the rituals are hidden because they are not supposed to be perceived by anybody. They cannot be perceived by an average person, and the reason of making that a secrecy and maintaining it as a secret society or a secret thing is that the individual has to receive the knowledge, the esoteric and occult knowledge of the nature of the realities. So
now, Peter, when you say that the average person can't perceive it, I mean, do you think they can't perceive it from all the formal education and indoctrination that comes from formal education? And the reason I bring this up, Peter, is because that most of us recognize the genius of a child, where everyone, and it comes from obviously Plato's theory of recollection, where we are when we first come into this world, where does the ability of that a child has, like, let me back up a little bit, but every child has the ability to make comparisons, to make and to draw contrasts and make distinctions between the differences in their world around them. I mean, every time you see a kid who's 5 years old or younger, always saying like, who's older? Like, how about have my two grandparents stand side by side? Who's taller? Who's skinnier? Who's fatter? Who has the longer hair? I mean, I'm just using that as an illustration, but the fact of the matter is, every child has this ability to draw distinctions and to make comparisons. And it's a very sophisticated intelligence that no child has to be taught. And I think it's actually the kernel of truth that why every person says, boy, the kid's a genius. Did you hear what that kid said? I mean, my God, I haven't heard something that smart in who knows how long. And it's because every child has this capacity for genius. Almost every child does, Peter. And we as adults, we see it in children. So I almost think that unless somebody was born with some profound birth defect, the average person does have this capacity for genius until it's driven out of them by organized education and also religion, unfortunately, as well.
Well, that's true, definitely,
Yeah.
and thank you for that for that statements and for those assumptions and the facts, because that's the way it is. And yeah, well, I've heard.
So I guess Peter, before you, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get to is why this need for secrecy unless you have, a sinister motive, unless you have, I mean, obviously, and the great culprits are obvious for power and control. I mean, obviously that is one of the greatest urges in this universe and these secret societies and governments is to have power and control for the sake of power and control. And sure, I mean, I'm not ruling out that there's another greater, loftier objective, but trying to drill it down, why the need for secrecy, right?
Sure, yeah, I completely get your point, and I understand the meaning behind it. If that means if you want to make the things clear, why not to unveil, and why not to open up in front of the eyes of the public, in front of the eyes of everybody?
Yeah.
Well,
especially if your intentions are good.
Yeah.
If your intentions
okay,
are good,
if your intentions are good, you don't have nothing to hide.
Right.
No
why
reason
keep it a secret if you have good intentions? Yeah.
Okay. Well, the same question can be asked. Why, for example, okay, I was traveling. You were traveling as well, so you know that at least in the Orthodox Church, I don't go too much with it. I don't speak too much about it. But I've been to Russia, for example, or the US, or anybody, or here where I am currently. So you've got the churches I don't step into often, but I went, and you have the liturgy, the mass, whilst the altar is hidden from the eyes of the majority.
Mhm.
So the hierarchy within the ecclesiastical core, which is different from military one, although there are certain similarities in the ranks. The inner hierarchy is hiding the what they call the mystery from the majority. So certain societies, and that is inherited to the nature of human animal or human being, have the inclination, they tend to preserve and keep certain things hidden from the layman, and that's normal. So okay, the Freemasons were always, or at least many times during the evolutionary history, accused. They've been accused many times for diabolical actions and sorcery or witchcraft, or simply the negative rulership that has the painful consequences. But what I'm going to tell here is that I repeat that the genuine, the real, original Freemasonry does have its spirituality, and it's simply the way you put it. Since we've already concluded that the ultimate nature of the realities, or at least what humans perceive as reality, as dualism conjoined into one, into unity, which has been artificially separated one from another, we're speaking about the same thing, and the only difference that it does make is what kind of a path you want to go through.
This
So,
kind of ties into what when we're talking about alchemy too, and how the
Sure.
secret wisdom, the knowledge and wisdom about the secrets to the universe. I mean, they're neutral. So it's just a matter of, do you want to use them with ill intent or, you know, for good intent. So I mean, the knowledge and information itself isn't good or bad. It's just neutral, and it's how do you want to use it.
Sure, definitely. Just as the natural laws, which represent the ethical or the moral laws of the universe, you know, because the laws of physics, meaning the nature, are the moral or the ethical laws of the universe. So this is the way of thinking of a Freemason, that this is the way they would put it down. So they are morally neutral. That's the point, as well as you said. So and the practical application of every patent or a gadget that prevails from the usage of the particular cosmic laws as morally neutral as well. So we were discussing about the topic that I could use a knife to kill a person or to carve a beautiful sculpture or a house or anything constructive. So, and many things get clearer when we put it this way. Also, there is I have some friends who are the members of the Templar Corps of the Knights and the Templar Order that has been founded by Jacques Desmoulins, le Grand Maître, the Grand Master. And later on, we were discussing a lot about Igdepeying. I think that you and I should, I mean, we have to open up a, one of the further meetings devoted to those people and these topics. And the Templars were often, you know, falsely accused for being worshiping what's called the devil, or that was the statue of Baphomet, which means the wisdom, which equalizes the Sophia and the Atbash formula, which derives from the Ivrit, the Hebrew language. You know that the numbers and the letters in Hebrew equalize each other. They are, you know, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and so on. They represent the particular numbers as well as we know. So when you calculate the ciphers, the letters of the name Baphomet, you get the equalization with Sophia, which is the wisdom, of course. Oh, wow. Yeah, and of course the word Sophia derives from it came from Greek, but earlier it derived from Hebrew and Soph, which means the initial breath of the universe, meaning the breathing power which gives the life. So the rabbis, who are deeply, profoundly introduced into the secrecy of Kabbalah, they use that particular let me call it substance named Ensoph. They use it in order to produce a golem, which is an equivalent for a homunculus.
Oh yeah,
It's been called in the medieval ages, the Middle Ages, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe has mentioned the homunculus in the Faust drama. Often has a side character inside, and we're not talking about Gollum here, it's perfectly clear to you, but I'm saying to people who probably didn't hear well, we're talking about golem. That means a being that is recreated from the earthly elements, meaning that it's cruel, but it's mud and the clay, and they have inhaled or injected the breath of the universe by certain formulas that derive from Kabbalah into the being, into the homunculus, or the tiny man. So it functions, although it's silly, but it functions because they repeat the original way of creation by being rabbis, because they are connoisseurs of the fact. I mean, our marital godfather, our best man, is a rabbi in a synagogue and in the vicinity of Belgrade. So he knows the stuff. What am I talking about? And he speaks English quite good enough in order to be able to understand and comprehend this. So I have an idea to invite him into our show, because he's a great as a terrorist as well. Mm-hmm. So and I just want to mention that the topic and the subject of Golem has been described in the eponymous novel written by Gustav Meinrich. Gustav Meinrich. Yeah, he was a Czech Jew. He was a writer and occultist. Just take a look at a more thorough look at his pictures. So you will see that he was very deeply introduced into the occult, and he's widely mentioned in our book of culture that is on Amazon. So yeah, and also he has written the book named Angel from the West Window. Sorry, The Angel from the West Window, one of the greatest books from my juvenile period. It also deals with the occult. So this is just a brief overlook, and cross, passing between the occult and the literature, its application. And surely we have to open up one of the further ones, which is dedicated to the relation between the occult and literature. Why not?
Yeah. Sure. All right.
And also the application of the occult in music, both the classical and heavy metal. Okay, this is just one of the hints for our. You were thinking the same, I'm sure.
I was, yeah. A lot of that. Are we talking about a lot of this? Or the occult is expressed with symbolism and say like enigmatic song lyrics. What all? You know what I mean, Peter? I mean, because it's not always explicit in pop culture, but obviously we see the symbolism, especially with
on the subliminal.
On the
level.
Subliminal, yes, on the subliminal level. So that's where we see the occult expressing itself subliminally.
Sure, definitely. And we have to reschedule, I mean, for one of our further shows. But we have to, this is the announcement for our widening audience, because I'm sure there's widening, that we have to finish with the great theme of the particular alchemists, and to speak more profoundly about the alchemy itself, to speak more about the craft per se, because it is craft, and also the relationship between the Freemasonry and the alchemy.
Oh, even one of the great secrets is the nature of perception. How perception does create reality. I mean, right? I mean, that's alchemy right there. I mean, there's a very brief exchange in a movie called Sneakers between Robert Redford and Ben Kingsley relating to the stock market and how perception shapes reality, and how the perception of a rumor can completely destroy a business and all the ancillary companies that do business with it. Just from pure rumor, from something that is not true, but you throw it in there and you change perception, you create a new reality. So I mean, just so the understanding the nature, that's just one instance. We're understanding how perception creates reality is a form of alchemy. And the people that manipulate our world and direct our world, and obviously the people that are behind this great work of the Illuminati and Freemasons, they are well aware of how perception works, and how perception is a form of alchemy.
Sure, but I'm just willing to mention for the last minute that those people who were imposing the COVID-19, they don't necessarily have to have nothing in common with the Freemasonry.
No, they don't. No, you're right. Yeah.
They're simply over rich.
Yeah.
They don't have to belong to a particular logia or anything else. They are simply over rich in order to impose themselves. And that's
So Peter, we are at 1 minute though, so we are at less than 1 minute. So
okay, we're off.
This is a great place to pick it up next time, and
Sure.
get Nico back